Democrats, led by Senate Budget Chair Bernie Sanders, have unveiled a $3.5 trillion plan meant as a way to fill the gaps left by the weak and embarrassing infrastructure plan that was put forward by Biden and corporate senators. Now, Bernie's plan is meant to pass through budget reconciliation, meaning it'll only require 50 votes plus VP Kamala Harris as opposed to the regular 60. But this story is really a mixture of hope and pessimism, as yes, this plan is fantastic. I'll give you a quick breakdown in a second here of what we know so far about what may be in it. But the idea that Democrats will actually be able to pull this off, I think, brings this whole story down. But I'll get to a couple of reasons in a minute here why I think that there is still hope potentially for this passing, but I don't want to, fool you into thinking that this will definitely get through, because in all likelihood it will not. But first here from Jeff Stein on the breakdown. So ballparking here, if this number gets through, they can include some combo of child tax credit extension, elder care, key climate plans, EVs, green credits, etc., Medicare, dental, vision, hearing, which by the way is confirmed to be in the plan, major housing plan, pre-K/childcare, paid leave, and free community college. So details are still coming in terms of what is actually in this, but we know that there is essentially a max of $3.5 trillion that can be spent. And Mike Kaska here tweets out, if this $3.5 trillion reconciliation bill passes, it will be the most consequential legislation enacted by Congress since the Great Depression. No small thing, folks, literally. So a lot of hope and optimism here so far, but we got to see. So a little more here from Politico. Combined with a bipartisan infrastructure compromise that's still getting shaped into legislation, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer said the budget's investments in infrastructure, the middle class, and more would total about $4.1 trillion. Quote, which is very, very close to what President Biden asked us for. Biden will also attend Democrats' lunch on Wednesday to discuss the plans, Schumer said. So the $3.5 trillion in combination with what's in infrastructure comes out to about $4.1 trillion. Now, the issue with the infrastructure bill is a lot of it is essentially corporate giveaways. So this is part of the reason why I think there is a sliver of hope here for the potential of this actually getting through, is because if corporations are happy enough with what is in this essentially Republican infrastructure plan that Biden put forward, if they're happy enough with that, then it may give the green light to Manchin and Sinema and others like John Tester to support the budget reconciliation plan that Bernie put forward. So that's one reason why I have a slimmer of hope here. But again, the way we've seen this go on, happen again and again, is you have corporations essentially wanting it all. And if they don't get it all, then they want none of it. So this is why there is this continued pessimism in the ability for Democrats to pass something like this that will actually help people. So even though they still get the corporate giveaways in the infrastructure bill, Democrats here essentially putting forward everything else that should have been in the infrastructure bill in a separate budget reconciliation bill could potentially hurt the ability for anything to get through. But I'm going to play a clip here. This is from Ryan Nobles. Senator Sanders had pushed for spending as much as $6 trillion. He called tonight's agreement a big deal and specifically talked about how it will balance the tax code and large corporations are going to start paying their fair share, which, again, goes to my pessimism. This should have been in the infrastructure package. The fact that it's not is because of the power of corporations over politicians. But that is in this infrastructure or in this budget reconciliation plan leads me to believe that in all likelihood, it's not going to get through. But let me play this quick clip here from Bernie Sanders.
And for a very long time, the American people have seen the very rich getting richer and government developing policies which allow them to pay, in some cases, not a nickel in federal income taxes. They've seen corporations make huge profits. In some cases, they're not paying a nickel in taxes. And what this legislation says, among many, many other things, that those days are gone. The wealthy and large corporations are going to start paying their fair share of taxes so that we can protect the working families of this country. And all over America, in Vermont, Washington, Michigan, wherever it may be, you got mom and dad going to work and they can't afford childcare. They're scared to death about whether or not they can afford to send their kids to college. and they go to work over a bridge which is crumbling. And what this legislation does is says we're going to create millions of good paid union jobs, rebuilding this country not only from a physical infrastructure, but dealing with the human needs of our people.
So while Bernie is exactly right about making corporations and the wealthy pay their fair share, this is the reason why it is unlikely that this will get through, that this will get the support of people like Joe Manchin, Kyrsten Sinema, and other corporate Democrats, because it essentially includes what is not in the infrastructure bill that they approved of. They approved of the infrastructure plan that Biden put forward because of the fact that it was not a detriment to corporations, that in fact it was a giveaway to corporations. So for them to then turn around and support everything in the budget reconciliation bill that they were against being in the infrastructure bill, I just don't see it happening. But that said, let's get back to a glimmer of hope from Mark Warner here. So Ryan Nobles tweets out, getting moderate buy-in. And by the way, moderate means corporate senators or corporate politicians, corporate Democrats, corporate Republicans. The idea of that they're moderate is just comical, and they really need to stop using this framing. Moderate puts the assumption forward to, the average reader that these people are somewhere in the middle of the country. No, people like Mark Warner are not in the middle of the country. They are representing corporations. That's what they are. So moderate is just the wrong descriptive word here. But he says here, getting moderate buy-in will be vital as this legislation makes its way through the Congress. Mark Warner was the key moderate negotiator on the committee. Quote, I've done this job for about 12 years. I can't think of a more meaningful effort than what we are taking on. So the language here, you can already see Mark Warner doesn't really, he's not putting forward this will definitely get through. We have a great plan here. No, this is a meaningful effort. So, yeah, this glimmer of hope actually turned into more pessimism, as you see here. He doesn't seem all that confident in this getting through. More on that. So from Politico, Senators Joe Manchin and John Tester, both moderates, again, the wrong descriptor, said earlier Tuesday that they'll need time to sort through the plan compiled by the Budget Committee. Quote, we need to pay for it, Manchin said. I'd like to pay for all of it. I don't think we need more debt. Now, Manchin knows the way to pay for it is to tax the wealthy and corporations, which he's against. So he is knowingly putting himself in a position here to turn down the plan. Because even though it is paid for mostly, and again, I don't have to go through deficit spending and how there is nothing at all wrong with it. Deficit spending is completely normal. Governments don't run the same way that companies do. That's a whole other discussion about fiat currency and I don't know. Read Stephanie Kelton if you want to know what I'm talking about here. But essentially, you don't need to have everything paid for in order to put these plans forward. That said, Manchin understands that he's against raising taxes on corporations and the wealthy, yet at the same time is claiming that we need to pay for this. It's such a dishonest framing from Manchin, and the fact that places like Politico just regurgitate this crap without criticizing or critiquing what he's saying here goes to a large part of the issue and why things often don't get done, and that's because of poor media framing and the lack of journalism involved. But let's end on a couple of lighter notes or happier notes. Nina Turner here saying Medicare is popular because it works. That's why we should lower the eligibility age to 0. In the meantime, we must immediately act on the opportunity to improve the lives of millions of older Americans by covering their dental, hearing, and vision. Thank you, Bernie Sanders. And as I said earlier, that's in this, which is fantastic. Continuing to expand Medicare, even though, yes, not Medicare for all, of course, but moving in that direction, moving to expanding what Medicare includes, and at some point lowering the age will go a long way to expanding Medicare, and eventually at some point, Medicare for all. But last thing here, Americans for Tax Fairness tweeted out, breaking, billionaires have gotten $1.8 trillion richer, nearly all tax-free since the pandemic began. Don't tell us we can't afford a bold reconciliation package that invests at least $4 trillion in jobs and families, paid for by fair taxes on the rich and corporations. So, yeah, I mean, it's really the same thing over and over again. We know how uneven, unfair this world is. Now, when you continue when politicians, when the media continues framing these sorts of discussions as needing to work with moderates, needing to find middle ground, it is so completely dishonest. Look who benefits. Look who has been benefiting for decades. There needs to be a real shift in the way that these stories are told, or else there is going to continue to be this impression that you have to work with corporate senators as opposed to understanding that these people are diametrically opposed to progress for the average person.